Hey, Planeswalkers, Mythras here. Hope you're doing well and staying safe. My friends, we have one of my favorite episodes once again today. We are doing a monthly tier list here for March, and we are covering the best of three. So yesterday we did the best of one. Today we're doing the best of three. I appreciate you tuning in because we do have a lot to go through, my friends. So you guys can drill into the details down below. Check out the timestamps where I will give you guys the tier list here for best of three. We'll then talk about some key trends and observations because a lot did happen over the past month or so, actually, since the last time we've done this tier list. And then additionally, we're going to go ahead and drill into three key top decks for you here today. Absolutely impactful in terms of the meta. And then we'll kind of wrap it all up and give some final thoughts there, my friends. So if you do have questions or comments throughout, please let me know down below. You guys can absolutely hop into the Discord server as well. It is there in the details for you. And last but not least, lots of great ways to support the channel in the details and other ways, my friends. So flip me a like if you guys enjoyed today's video, and let's hop into it here. So before we show the tier list, for those of you that don't know, or for those of you that are returning, a tier list in Magic is a stack ranked of essentially the decks that are better than the others in terms of which one will outperform the other. Now, I do a tier 1, 2, and 3. I'll expand that to 4 potentially on the number of decks. This time around, we have roughly 40. So did keep that at a 3-tier system for us here today. So with that, that's a great segue for us to dive into our tier list here, my friends, because we do have a lot to get through. Like I said, we got roughly 40 decks here, and this is what you guys came here to see. Now, this list is available for you down below in the details, so you have access to it right away. All the videos with lots of detail, how to play them, matches, all that stuff are right there for you, my friends, with best of 3 sideboard guides too. So tier 1, we have Temur Turns, Mono White Aggro, Mono Red Snow, Jeskai Pyromancer Cycling, and Jeskai Cycle. So those two are kind of similar, but we will talk about that. Then in tier 2, we have Dimmer Rogues, Dimmer Luris Rogues, Temur Aggro, aka Wet Gruul, so your traditional Gruul deck there as well. Naya Adventures, Naya Aggro Adventures, Sultai Ultimatum, Is It Tempo, 4-color Sultai Yorion Control, 4-color Yorion Doom, Boros Aggro, Mono Green Food, Rakdos Sacrifice, Mono Green Stompy, Jund Giganthosac, Dimir Yorion Control, Azor's Fable, Esper Yorion Doom, Grixis Control, Mono Red Boast. And then as we get into tier 3 here, we got Mono Green Aggro, Temur Ultimatum, Mono White Life Gain, Golgari Midrange, Boros Equipment, Naya Fury, Abzan Yorion Control, Orzhov Doom Tirgrid, Selesnya Toski, Jeskai Spells, Jund Adventures, Abzan Adventures, Bant Mutate, Mardu Gigantho Wanada, and Jeskai Flyers, my friends. So that is the tier 1, the tier 2, and the tier 3 of roughly, like I said, around 35 decks for you here today. Very powerful, as we've seen a lot of changes here. We'll talk about those in the key trends and observations in a minute. But as I mentioned, this is all available for you down below. Additionally, before we go ahead and hop into our observations over the past month, I do weekly series around the meta, and very important, and that will play into what we have to discuss today, as well as some of the stuff that we did not discuss in terms of best of 1, my friends. So in terms of the best of 3 observations and trends, what is important to understand is that the meta still might potentially be wide open. And we say this because there is a variation of decks that we've seen move around in tournaments that perform better than others. But the other piece around this is it represents a very, very healthy meta. So we already talked about that in the best of 1, but did want to call that out because it's pretty important to see. Now, the dichotomy here, which I did cover in the weekly meta analysis, I think about 2 weeks ago now, or a week and a half ago now, so 2 episodes back, was really this divergence between best of 1 and best of 3. So extremely important that we call this out here again, because there is not as much correlation as there was in the past. What was good in best of 1 minus, I'd say, save Mono White Life Gain, and best of 3 is totally different now. A lot of the decks are still good or can carry over, but the difference is where they're kind of stack ranked, particularly in the best of 1, best of 3 is totally different for the most part now. So pretty important there. And also in terms of the dichotomy, we're tending to see more traditional kind of late game decks, mid-range decks piling in here at this part in the season for our March tier list. So that is pretty important relative to the best of 1. Now, aggro still is very strong. We can see that here, but we have a pretty heavy hitter in the newcomer, which is Temur Turns. So it's important that we take a look at this deck. One, I wanted to specifically call this one out this month because first and foremost, it's probably one of the most impactful decks, minus we saw tons of Naya stuff, which I talked about in the best of 1, 4 variations actually. But here, not only did this go on to have a strong performance, but additionally has one of the best win rates. We talked about this in the weekly meta for this past week. And then additionally, there isn't much that has a good matchup against it, minus rogues, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. So those are pretty important things to understand. It's gotten streamlined, it's gotten better, and it's a very efficient deck. It played well for me as well when I did run it. Now, a couple of key points here. I did mention this in best of 1 slightly, but again, want to hone in a little bit more. In particular, this is a very good one to pay attention to, is tweaks that make a difference. So the big callouts here are really the cycling decks. We see the Jeskai Pyromancer cycling change, and then from that 4-color or Jeskai cycle deck, I did a specific piece around this the past month on the evolution of the cycle deck, so you guys can check that out if you want. Pretty interesting there. But additionally, the big one here is also mono white aggro. So we've had 2 versions there. So one doing well in the 5K SCG event, and then also another one hitting number 1 with Lilium for our arena decks. Now, both different, similar, but play to the style, tournament play versus arena, certainly different. I think it was walking efforts for the number 1 spot in the mono white aggro deck. So something to keep an eye on. It hasn't gone away. Mono red snow is still good. It's just not played as much. So keep those things in mind. Now, what this certainly lends itself to is a very fast-paced evolution. So many of you that we've talked about before in the Discord server, as well as in the videos or Twitch, and also some of the articles and the weeklies that I produce, is really about this fast-paced evolution. We can certainly see that now that I'm doing the weekly spotlight series and drilling into things a little bit more, providing the content around the events. But additionally here, then when we take a step back and look at it from a higher level, generally that it's more in terms of details, impacts in the decks and some of the win rates in totality, but also how they're performing over time and not just a sliver snapshot. A good example I can talk about is, again, some of the fall off decks like Naya, and then also mono red snow falling out of favor but coming back, and then things like rogues creeping up. Now, Sultai Ultimatum I will touch on here for a second because many of you love that deck. Again, here I have it as tier 2. Primarily there are still other decks that have higher win rates, and additionally in the tournaments we've seen that. Now, it certainly is and continues to be a top finisher, and I get a lot of questions about that one, so I definitely wanted to spotlight that on. Now, additionally, the other thing that's interesting about this is that we kind of skipped over the mid-range. I played a nice mono green food deck this week. We didn't see as much influx of the Rakdos sack deck and the Jund sacrifice deck. I would certainly say keep an eye on that. I believe that we'll see more of that traditional Rakdos mid-range deck maybe coming back too. So we'll just have to keep an eye on some of these things, my friends. So pretty interesting. Again, very quick. We moved from aggro to late game, and we've seen some pretty cool things pick up. So last but not least, again, just to reiterate, check out yesterday's video. I'll make sure that's linked for you, or read the article that I pulled together on Reddit or my website if you guys want, around some additional information around best of 1. We we saw, like I mentioned, the Naya stuff impacts the tournaments as well as some of the content creators. So it certainly doesn't hurt to check that out. And then also one final piece, again, as I've said, I did PR top 50 with mono white life gain. And additionally, I did take some time to try and do some science for us and see how quickly we can decay. So very excited about this list, you guys. Very happy about it. I will say it was very close for me at the top end here with Temur Turns. I think it certainly deserves it because in its totality versus mono white aggro in a head-to-head match, Turns, one, generally has a better win rate, but two, has less decks that actually it has a bad matchup against relative to things like mono white aggro. So very, very important there. And as always, Planeswalkers, just a huge thank you. Truly appreciate your support as always. So flip me a like if you guys are enjoying today's video. So that concludes the tier list in the 1, 2, 3 fashion. And then now we're going to go ahead and we've covered off on the observations. We're going to go check out some key decks here for you guys today, and we'll talk about those here in a minute. So let's take a look and see what we got. Maybe to no guess, we got 3 ones that we're going to cover: Temur Turns, Jeskai Pyrocycling, and then also the Dimir Rogues deck. So Temur Turns here is very, very important. Again, this is a big pickup from Kaldheim. I think it's changed quite a bit, actually. Difference here is also, while this one was, I believe, it was actually on Arena. So this version is probably more geared towards that, so keep those things in mind. I don't think we see as much gold spans. Gold spans actually slightly kind of fallen out of favor. Obash is still a big piece of it, as well as everything else here. So a very, very strong deck. We get some early lift. We get the adventures component of it still. At the top end, we just keep popping those turns and we keep doing a lot of damage. You get the Great Henge in there. You guys see how it goes. And then obviously a nice sideboard to match all the particular decks that we may run into, and you guys can certainly check out this episode where I cover off on that sideboarding for you a little bit more. So certainly a deck of importance. The next one's the Jeskai cycling deck. So Pyromancer deck, so a lot of evolutions here. Boros, 3-color, 4-color, also then this, and certainly between Zendikar's Rising, the original Ikoria, and then also now into Kaldheim, we see all these different plays. But the biggest one about this is Improbable Alliance. Additionally, we got Ironcrag Pyromancer, and then this version runs Riley, and also Teferi. You can certainly streamline things a little bit more. These would be some considerations on my end to flip some other stuff in, but a very, very powerful deck has become more of a staple as well in terms of best of 3, which is why we're covering it in this format today, because it's pretty important to be aware of this. We'll continue to see sideboards probably adjust for this. Now, it's gotten better. These additions allow you for some other additional outs and also help you against more creature-based decks, which is pretty important. Then all you got to do is flip in some of your counterspell magic and rip through the late game decks, and you're golden there, my friends. So that is what we got going on from that perspective here. And then last but not least, we get everyone's favorite Dimir Rogues. So this is a Lurrus version of it. Lurrus gives us access a little bit additionally to pull things back. We've also picked up this guy right here, Crippling Fear, which is a very, very important card. This helps ensure a lot of things. Now, we get to choose a creature type, so typically you're going to hit rogues, and creatures that aren't of that chosen type will get -3/-3 till end of turn. So a very, very streamlined version with some additional upticks, and a nice sideboard to boot as well. This one runs Valky, so you guys can keep that in mind, hence also one of this year step pathway there, and a great way to do it. Now, a big piece about this one here, just for a minute, is with the rise of turns, this has and is one of the best decks that countered that deck. So one of the reasons why I think we've seen an uptick in this list as well, and again, as I've always been saying, Rogues hasn't got bad. So it certainly didn't improve a ton, but now that we have Crippling Fear here against some of these other strong aggro decks and can board this in, it's starting to make a big difference for those matchups as well. And then certainly does perform well against some of those late game decks here with a lot of that traditional counter magic. We can still mill our opponents out and all sorts of things that we can take advantage of with our rogue decks between win conditions there, my friends. So again, these are the three key decks. Turns making a big impact, cycling making a big impact this season, and then additionally rogues making kind of that comeback. So to close out here, let's go ahead and I'll pull up the tier list one last time so you guys can see it. Very, very excited, as you guys know, and very happy to always do these lists. I really, really enjoy them. Certainly getting a little bit quicker at it because we do the weeklies as well, and I highly encourage you guys and gals to check out those episodes because it is pretty important in terms of the fast evolution, where you can see the percent played in the meta. I do get a lot of questions about that, so going back to Ultimatum, thank you to those spikes that did comment around that in the best of one tier list yesterday about seeing Sultai Ultimatum. Why isn't it tier 1? Well, the reason is just because more people are playing it doesn't mean it's actually a better deck. And then as more players pile in, the win rates generally come down. They don't always go up until you see a kind of reversion of those. So that gives us that healthy balance in the meta, and in particular, cycles like this that we like to see between aggro, mid-range, and late game, even though, like I mentioned, we kind of went from aggro to late game. So to close out Planeswalkers, where are we going to go? What did we talk about? So first, what did we talk about? We gave you guys the list, obviously. We covered some of those key observations and trends that have happened, and then talked about 3 key decks here making an impact this month, and certainly stuff that I love to showcase. Where are we going from here? We're going to start seeing a little bit more of the Strixhaven stuff. We got that coming up soon as well. Looking forward to change, as I always say. Hopefully we'll continue to see some of that balance love, which is very important. We'll get about, I think, April 15th is the release date for Strixhaven. We'll get a healthy, off the bat run here. My advice, as always, is stick to some of the top decks going into that for the next month. Generally, you're going to be okay. I may try and do a tier list, 2 snapshot lists. We'll see next month, depending on how much time I can do and pull together for you with the new set as well. So Planeswalkers, as always, it's a pleasure. I truly appreciate your support. I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. I really, really enjoy this community and what you guys bring to the table and allow me to share this stuff with you. So until next time, you guys stay safe. Gals, stay safe. If you got questions or comments, as I said, let me know. Let me know what you think. And would love to hear from you. As always, feel free to hop on that Discord server. Flip me a like I said, you guys. Other great ways to support the channel. You guys know it. Feel free to check out the details, and hats off to all the supporters as always. Very, very thankful. So love doing this stuff. We'll see you soon. Stay safe. We'll get back to some top decks and a lot of other fun Magic things coming your way, Planeswalkers. My friends, until next time, Mythras out.